I'm John the Flamboy from Zombie Army. You're watching The Hawk Show. Alright guys, welcome back. It's been a few weeks because we've been doing this, moving all these walls inside, moving all this stuff out of our yard. So we got like 6 or 7 stacks of walls in here all the way up to the ceiling. Alright, so that's why it's been so long. That's why I look a little different than the last time you saw me. I'm here with Stefan. We're going to make the frames for our mausoleums today. So that's what you'll see. We're going to show you everything, give you a complete tutorial on how to do it. So stay tuned. Alright, so right here we've got these. We've got 6 studs, and these are going to act as our uprights. And then these ones over here we're going to cut up to make our top and bottom plates for the frames for the mausoleum, so that the styrofoam has something to stick to. We're going to show you some more in just a second. Okay, so we just marked it off at 4 feet, and that's going to act as our header. Stefan's in there right now. He's cutting it with the chop saw.
The show must go on.
Alright, now this piece I've marked at 12 inches. And that's going to act as the header for our side piece to make this thing 6 feet instead of 4. Okay, so while my air compressor, that big loud thing over there, is compressing air so we can have our nail gun and our staple gun to make our frames, I've marked out 12 inches. Not sure if you guys can see that line all the way down. I'm going to cut this chunk off, and I'm going to cut one more for our end pieces. Alright, now I'm going to take my nail gun here. I've got my boards cut for the studs on this. Since you're making an 8-foot wall, you want your studs to be cut at 7 foot 9 inches. It might not sound like it makes sense unless you know a little bit about construction, but the reason that is because when you put your top plate on and the bottom plate on down there, that's going to add your extra 3 inches, which will give you 8 feet. So cut your studs at 7 foot 9. Alright, nailing is really easy. I use a nail gun instead of screws. Nails hold about the same as screws. They're coated with a glue, and the friction actually heats it up when you shoot it in, which glues the nail in there. And it's way quicker than screwing. I can guarantee that. So I'm going to shoot this in there real quick. I can't hold a camera and shoot nails at the same time, so I'm going to set it down over here. Alright, you can see that quick. I just put 2 nails in there. That's going to hold it in. It doesn't spin at all. Nothing. It's held in there just as strong as screws. It's way quicker. I didn't strip anything out. And a box of nails is pretty cheap. And when we put the plywood on, we're going to use the same kind of thing, but we're going to use staples instead. They're big, long staples, about that long. So, give me a second while I shoot this other one. Alright, and there again, 2 nails, good to go. I'm going to flip this around, put on the other side. Then I'm going to start with the plywood. Okay, so I wanted to show you this real quick. I've got the frame done, bottom plate and top plate, all with nails. And I'm going to put the plywood on here. That's going to square it all up and strengthen it all up. Okay, I want to explain something real quick. I've seen a lot of people make walls, and sometimes instead of putting this on top like this, they'll put it inside here. Okay, here's why that's wrong. If you put that inside here, these studs are doing nothing. If that happens, the only thing that's holding on your board are the nails or screws that you put in here. If you put it on like this, you could stand on this, and the only thing that could happen is if this broke. And unless you put 2,000 pounds of pressure on it, you're not going to snap that. So that's my argument for why you should put these on top instead of placing them inside. Alright, I'll show you the next after I put the plywood on here. Okay, now I just shot this whole thing. This whole sheet of plywood is now secured in. I used the staple gun, and the staple gun is the quickest way to secure plywood to this. Anyone who can put 1-inch screws in quicker than I can shoot this staple gun, I will be extremely impressed. As you can see, those little yellow things are the staples, so they're that long when they shoot in, and it has what's called a bump trigger, which means you press it once. Let me zoom out. You press it once, and then every time you press down, it shoots a staple. It's not plugged in right now, I'm just showing you. But anyway, so I could shoot this whole side and all the way around it in about 30 seconds max, and it'll be completely held down. I mean, it's not going anywhere at all, anywhere. So, all right, I'm gonna make the side frames, and then we're gonna put these together to make the 6-foot wall. All right, quick construction tip: when you're cutting your studs or when you're cutting anything, you want to actually measure out what you're going to cut off. So on every stud, you actually want to measure out those 3 inches that you will cut off each stud. The reason I'm telling you this is because you might get the idea, hold on, you might get the idea that, you might get the idea that you want to cut one and then use that as kind of a jig and just mark off on the end of every one. The problem with that is, when you mark that off, it's going to be just a little bit longer, and if you keep using a new one every time, eventually you're going to have a massive change from your original 7-foot 9-inch stud to the one you're currently cutting or measuring, and that's going to throw your walls off. So just take that extra step, measure out 3 inches, and cut it every time. Don't take this kind of a shortcut, because in the long run it's going to hurt you. Alright, I'm going to cut the other studs and put the plywood on. Be right back. Okay, so now I've made the frame for my one side part that will go on. You can see it here. I'm going to put the plywood on right here. Let me square it up, and then I'm going to show you me shooting it with the staple gun in real time. Alright, if you see here, down here I have it pretty much squared up. So it's pretty even there, pretty even there. But then up here, it comes over. Alright, wood and 2x3s and 2x4s, they're not always perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to even up one side. Let me hook my air up. Okay, so now I have it hooked up, and I've got one side evened up. I can shoot this right in the corner, make sure this one's evened up too. Alright, we got it even there. Now that side is going to hold. So I can come down here, and this, see it's hanging over a little bit right here? See that? So I can come here, and I can push this, get even. And now the top's going to hold, and this side's going to hold. Alright, now I'm going to show you me shooting this thing in real time. So, here we go. Anyone who can screw in plywood quicker than that, you would really impress me. So that is why you should use a staple gun instead of screws. That took me, what, 25 seconds, maybe? And that was holding a camera. You should see me when my hands are free. Alright, I'm going to make the other one, then I'm going to show you how I'm going to attach these. Alright, so here's the last step I'm going to show you for this part of the vlog, because after this, the structure's done. I've secured these two sides. Obviously, you're staring at the back right now, so whatever's on there, this is just scrap plywood. So all I did after I made every part was I just took like 5 or 6 screws and I screwed it in there to sandwich these. This is really the only part I use screws on, is to connect walls to other walls. And I only use screws on stuff that I want to take apart again. So the reason I made this as one wall and then 2 smaller parts instead of making just one big 6-foot part is so that I can store it much easier. Storing a regular size wall and 2 smaller parts is easier than storing one large 6-foot wide wall. So stay tuned. In the next video, I will show you the styrofoam going on here the rest of the way and the carving it and maybe even shooting some stucco on it. Thanks for watching.